Hey, so welcome to Uncensored Hot Femme, my brand new podcast. And I'm so happy to have Emily Whiteside here, who is my current mentor. And we have been working for, I don't know, like 8 months maybe. And
Yeah, almost a year, I think.
yeah, soon to be, probably time, time and dates. Yeah, and I found you on Instagram, and I remember being really, I love how you show off like your luxurious lifestyle. And for me, you had some kind of wounding around luxury in many kinds of ways that I will not go into because it's unimportant. And to really, as a woman, to find you, you have a lot of bright energy. I was thinking about it before the call, like also a lot of, sparkly maiden energy, I think, and just feels like you are playing with life so much. And I know there's just so many things about you, Emily, but I remember I joined a masterclass and I never even watched it. And then then you had your second thing and I joined and the rest is history, as you say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a soulmate connection, like such a dream connection in all of the ways. And we went to Paris together, which was incredible too.
Yeah, we've done a lot of things. Yeah, I just love the story around it all, and we will probably tap into it later, but I really want to put you in the spotlight now. Because often I'm, of course, in Emily's spaces, and she holds space for me. And, you know, so it's kind of having a different kind of format today.
Well, I really,
But
and thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to be here as
yeah,
part of one of your first guests.
yes, of course. And it's um it's um what was that I was going to say? Whatever. But I ask all my guests because I think it's so powerful to hear with your words and interesting to see what comes out if I ask you, Emily, with your own words, like who are you? How would you describe who's Emily Whiteside?
Oh, that's such a good question because I feel like it's so hard. Like, who am I? I don't know. I'm like a million different things.
Yeah,
I feel like what resonates with me most is just a woman who is so deeply in love with life. Like living from pleasure, just, I don't know, allowing myself to be enough and just create with what feels good. Like, I guess a good word is just pleasure. I am pleasure.
you're sure. And romance. I like
And
that.
romance. I should have had my computer switch the other way because I have my vision board posters of my photo shoots and everything. And the one big one says a big word romance on it. That's in
Mm,
script and it's so pretty. I'm staring at it right now.
yeah. Yeah, and I think it's so interesting when we meet someone new or like not only a mentor, but we have this first like snapshot of who we think someone is. And the more we get to know someone, because what I love about your spaces is that you love intimacy. So it's small containers, it's a lot of intimate time together and to truly get to know each other and still be able to, I'm your client and you're my coach, mentor, and still have that intimate connection and to get to know someone. And I love what you're saying because that's about how every woman have described it. Like, I don't know, I'm so many thing, or like I'm everything. And I feel that's just such a part of the feminine expression. I mean, you do a lot of identity work, but in essence of the feminine, I feel that's the energetics, and we are so full of that the more feminine, like we tend to fall to our feminine pole. But it's so interesting to hear a lot of people and women especially describe themselves like, yeah, who am I? And yeah, it's it's to be so many things. And I love people's contradictions. And I've gotten to know you more. So, I mean, the first snapshot of you was just, this luxurious brand. And I saw a lot of light, which I felt was also, I'm almost speaking Swedish now, but like the next thing I was called to because I had my previous mentor on too. And we did a lot of shadow work and we're a lot in the darkness. And I mean, you're also so deep. So I feel like I mean, I'm behind the scenes, so I know you.
Yes, you know it all. You know all the magic.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I received that. I It's so funny because it's like the duality or the holding. It's like as women, it's like who I am today. Like today I might be lightness and ease and flowing, but if you asked me last week, I might have been like, oh, I am like in the depths. I'm deep. I'm poetic. I'm um in my shadow. Like that's so beautiful just being in the feminine that we get to wear all of these different expressions. And I know you know me really well and you've been, in my world we've been in each other's world for like a year. But it's something I often like tell people is I am 5 stars and dive bars too, because it's like and it's just that funny duality that, you know, as we start to accumulate things or start to elevate our lifestyle, we almost have this identity crisis of like, well, I'm going to have to let go of like the things that I love that are not luxurious. And so you'll find me like traveling to Paris and having designer and doing all of these like very like luxurious things. But there's also a big part of me, and I have like my cowboy hat up here. It's like I have cowboy boots and cowboy hats, and I ride horses and I go camping. And I mean, I don't go camping so much anymore, but I used to. Um, and then like I love dive bars and just listening to old country music and spending my night dancing in like a little honky tonk. Like there's gets to be so many aspects of us, and we don't have to, although my brand is very forward facing with romance and luxury and pleasure, and that's mainly how I see life and how I am. It's like I still indulge in the, dive bars and horseback riding and hikes and everything like that. So just a little, I guess, tangent off of what you were saying before
Yeah.
with contradicting yourself.
Yeah, and I love that because I think we otherwise put ourselves, we think we have to choose this box or this box, or if I'm like this, I have to be like, I can't be like that. And I think that's what kind of disconnects us if I mean, you work a lot with abundance and money too. So I mean, if we take that just as an example, like, well, if I don't want to be like that, then I can't be rich, or if I, like, we put so much into the different identities, and I think it becomes so surface level then, because if you're choosing from desire, if you're choosing from what you want, then of course you would go to a dive bar and the 5 stars because it's what you want. You're living life from your wants and your desires, not from trying to be rich or trying to be a country girl or whatever that identity would be called. I don't know who goes to dive bars. It's not a Swedish thing.
Cowboys, fake cowboys in my cowboy era. No, you're so right. It's just like we get to be all of it. And I think like that embodiment piece, my yoga instructor actually last night said something about she was talking about at the very end of our meditation how we want certain things. She's like, we want success, we want peace, but the magic is knowing that you already are success and you already are peace. And how can you start to, if you're already that and you know you're already that, how can you start to embody that in your life? And so it doesn't mean that, I mean, this example is so silly, but it's so true. If like I'm in a dive bar and I am just a luxurious rich woman who enjoys old country music, and I resonate a lot with like that. I don't know, for some reason. I've always been like that. Maybe it's a childhood hometown thing. But it's like you might find me dressed up in a dive bar. Like I might be wearing my Christian Louboutin cowgirl boots in this dive bar filled with like people in jeans and, you know, sneakers. But I'm going to be a little bit dressed up because I take me with me everywhere I go. But it doesn't mean I have to close myself off. And there's a big difference between, belong, like when I belong somewhere, I'm just being me and I belong in that place. When I feel like I have to fit in, that's when we feel like we have to change our identity to be that. So even when like I was working on my rich woman identity, like before, and my luxurious identity, before I had any of that, but I wanted that, I had to decide it's like, no, I get to belong in it as me. I don't have to fit into it. So it doesn't mean that I have to carry a designer bag, which I choose to because I love designer bags, but that's not what it means. I don't have to do that to fit in. It's instead, I know who I am and I'm belonging in this space. I'm belonging in this identity. And I will adapt and shift like my consciousness while I grow. So I might, in the beginning, I never cared about shoes. I never cared about handbags. I could probably name like one or two designers. And none of that was ever crossing my mind. But to me, luxury at that time, when I was just building it, was like slow mornings and sipping tea and traveling for the first time by myself. Like it was a different expression of it. And then over time, as I grew, I just started to indulge in more things, and more things just started to become my normal. So, all of that to say,
Oh, I love that.
we
And it's so interesting that you say that because I was thinking about this. I don't know even if it was today or yesterday. I know you have the same thing every days and
we
times.
never know the days of the week.
Is it a weekend? Is it a weekday? I
Yeah,
don't know.
I never know.
No, but I was thinking about the exact thing like you're saying now with your words is what came up for me was like if you want to belong somewhere, you already belong there. It's like as you say, because you don't have to be a certain person, like you don't have to change the core of who you are to be somewhere because I know you're a deep feeling woman, so I think both you and I wouldn't want to be there anyways if it was that like needing to fit in. It's kind of like trying to fit into someone else's world. And I mean that is not abundance in a sense because if you are shutting down parts of yourself that feels untrue, I mean then you're not abundant within. So I'm loving like how you're describing this slowness, this pleasure that you did embody. And I know you have told me about your childhood too, like you didn't have much money, but your mom was really good at bringing out the magic in your life when you did things. And I mean, that's a touch of how you bring into, luxury so many things. And the cup of tea that you're describing, I mean, it's super luxurious too. So,
Yeah, I think luxury in its like simplest form is just us being present and taking in romance from wherever we are. It's like learning how to romanticize life and slow down enough to actually receive what's around us. And little touches of luxury are everywhere. I think when we really start to open our eyes to our current reality instead of trying to chase, oh, I need a better wardrobe or I need to live in a place like that, when you start to look around at your own surroundings, you'll find that, like, I remember living in a small town before I moved, did a big move. And when I started my like journey into luxury and my journey into feminine wealth, I was like, there's no luxury here. Like it's a small town, it's a small city. It's very well known for eating chicken wings and for football and just, like dive bars. And so I would have these like luxurious experiences when I would travel, but I felt like I was lacking. It would be night and day. So when I would travel, I would be like, oh my gosh, epiphanies, and I'm seeing all these beautiful things, and I'm experiencing all these beautiful things. And I would come home and I would feel this like lack, this scarcity. It felt like a cloud. And then I started to realize like luxury here is just going to look different. And I'm trying to make it look like a vacation. It's not going to look like that. So when I started to just allow luxury to be present with what I had and where I was, I started to notice like everything. First of all, I started realizing we do have five-star hotels in my little town and not many of them, but we do. So I would do a staycation there, and I remember finding more like higher end restaurants, which I never even knew about. It's like when you're on the frequency of luxury, you start to attract everything. And then I started to, the guys I was dating, I would start instead of like going to a dive bar and just getting like bar grub, I would be like, let's go to this nice restaurant. And it would be this like romantic evening. And I would be like, just romanced by men that I was dating, which was fully new and luxurious for me. And then I started just falling in love with little luxuries like the sheets that are on my bed. Instead of buying the cheapest sheets you can buy, I was like, I want my bed to feel like a hotel room. Like these five-star hotels I stay in, they have the nicest, crisp white sheets. So I bought expensive sheets for myself and like only one pair, but I could just wash them over and over. And it was so divine and so luxurious. And I bought a little tray for like food so I could do like room service, breakfast in bed, and teacups, just things that were really beautiful. I started to bring into my home, things that represented luxury to me. And then I could start indulging in that. And then I would, create little evenings around it and things like that. So just finding the luxury that's already around you, like that's one of the first steps.
Yeah, and what comes up is like, when I think about being connected, because that's how we experience in the present moment, and what comes up is this warmth, you can feel like warmth when we are in the present moment, or at least it feels like that for me. And I remember walking into as and I've been working as a nurse. I walked into a room with a patient there, and he had his daughters there, and they had brought flowers and chocolates, but it wasn't the things of itself because, I mean, it looked beautiful, but feeling the energy in the room of their dynamic and like how they were, and like it was like walking into a room full of warmth. And I mean, at the hospital, most rooms feel pretty cold. Like when you are sensitive to energy,
Mhm.
So for me too, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I've traveled, luxuries too, and to experience it is the experience of itself, and allowing yourself, if you fucking want it, you fucking want it, like, do I want to live at a five-star hotel because someone wouldn't, care? So why would they even use their money to go to a place like that if they don't want it?
Yeah.
But what I would love to ask you before moving on to the juicy parts around men and maybe other stuff. Um, so as someone working with this, where do you see women holding themselves back around, allowing themselves luxury or around money?
I think a lot of women deep down don't feel like they're worthy of it or that they're not good enough for it. And honestly, this goes so much deeper, and I could go on a whole tangent, so I'll keep this short. But I think women have been so trained not to trust themselves with money, thus not trusting themselves with luxury. We've been taught and conditioned that we are mothers, that we're supposed to take care of everybody, that we're homemakers, which is none of those are bad things, but we have been so disconnected from self-care and so disconnected from nourishment of ourselves. And so, luxury and abundance and money is all about nourishment. It's all about safety. It's all about overflow, receiving more. And as women who have been conditioned by society, have been conditioned by our own parents, that there's never enough, there's only scarcity. We have to stay quiet. We can't want too much or we're greedy. We can't want too much or we're selfish. We subconsciously just push those things off. And we've also been trained that being a turned on woman is a bad thing. And it means we're too much or we're too whatever, slutty, we're too we can't be trusted. So we're so ingrained to be people pleasers that we just push that thing away, even though we want it. But subconsciously, we're pushing it away because we feel like it's not safe. We feel like it's wrong for us to have it. For a lot of women, it feels forbidden. It feels like a waste. I can't tell you how many times growing up, my mom would buy herself new clothes. She would take us shopping. She'd get excited. She'd buy all these new clothes. And then the next day she would go and return them all. And it was constant. She would buy herself something, she would return it. And she's like, oh, I didn't want it anyway. It was too much money. It was a waste of money. I don't need to be spending that money on myself. And I remember thinking as just a little girl, like telling her, Mom, you get to have that. Like, just keep it. And I just watched her keep doing that. But I watch women all the time still, where it's just like, oh, I can't have that. It's a waste. Or they'll buy something for themselves and they'll feel guilt and they'll feel shame. It's just our trauma. It's just how we were conditioned to be. And so when I knew I healed so much when I could walk into a store and buy myself something and not look at the price tag and then not feel guilty after. Or when I could actually be in a five-star hotel and not feel like I didn't belong, and not feeling like someone was going to tap me on the shoulder and be like, ma'am, you have to leave. You don't belong here. It was just a huge, and I know you've experienced that too, because of our
Yeah.
conversations with like being in five stars, where it's like, I don't know if I'm allowed to receive this. People are caring for me. People are treating me like royalty. What if they find out I'm just me, you know? So it's just a trauma. Um, it's just a fear. And when we can move past that, we're open to so much more. And we even can become a better version of ourselves because of it.
Yeah, I mean, if we are talking about expansion, first and foremost, even without tapping into the luxurious part, being able to be supported financially and to know have everything we need if we are like at a needs level without having to worry, because some people say like money's not important. Okay, so how often do you worry about money? How much energy is it draining you of? Like, we're so afraid of money. We think like then I have to become this version that will, be evil, or like we make money very evil. And that's not only conditioned to women. I think it's just, yeah, some people in this world are assholes who use their like powers to get a lot of money. And honestly, they're actually in scarcity, so they're not abundant. So they might have the freaking money, but they're not abundant. So, and especially then as women, since I mean, it's been, as you say, conditioned and ingrained. And of course, I mean, we couldn't even support ourselves in the past because we had to rely on a man to get supported and all of those things. And it's a new era now where which actually is a good thing, I think, because that means we can fucking finally start to connect for real. Because yeah, we might have seen marriages last for 70 years before, but I don't even know why this is coming up. But let's just roll with this. And but did they really know each other? Did they really move beyond their fears? Did they really connect on a physical, emotional, energetic, like all the freaking levels? So, I mean, it's just so much to this, and yeah, we could spiral so much into it, and so, I mean, if we're even denying ourselves the most basic needs and thinking we are evil, we are being banned from or cast out from the group, and yeah, of course we would not want it. But how much do we actually want that we don't even allow ourselves in the first place to tap into? And as you say, like in the beginning, maybe you didn't want the handbags, but we start where we are standing also, of course, but we can allow ourselves to dream big and have those big visions while at the same time in this paradox be, as you say, in the present moment, in the now, and enjoy the tea or whatever,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Uh, it's so beautiful when we can allow ourselves to get there too, and just take that step. And I watch it, and I'm sure, like, as you're in the same body of work as I am. It's like I watch these women every day make a step to do that, to gift to themselves, to take that one step. Sometimes it's taking a quantum step, and they're like, don't, I can't believe I'm doing this, but like, it's my time now. And they take this huge leap, and it's like, I know you got this. I know you can do this. And it's just beautiful to see how the trajectory of their entire life changes. Like, I was not meant to be where I am in life. I was meant to live in a small town and have a 9 to 5 job and just be that girl that my parents raised me to be. And I have a much, much, much different lifestyle than I was brought up to have. So, but it would never have come had I not done the pleasure work, had I not took one step. Well, I didn't take steps. I took quantum leaps to like crazy risks. You're a little crazy. I'm
Fair.
a little crazy too. So, I mean, some of us are just kind of crazy, but
Yes.
we know what we're here to do. So we don't want to run, or we don't want to take time taking baby steps. We're like, I'm going to take the big steps, and I can clean up the messy energetics that come along with taking a big step.
Yeah, and I don't know how to do it differently. Or I'm starting to ground a little bit more, but honestly, to just leap is, I don't know. I kind of like it. And as in like, yeah, it might bring some chaos in the moment because it's like, oh my God, you're just like losing your ground. But of course, you're jumping into the unknown to something new. And I mean the same thing when I joined your world, and like when I said yes to Paris, I had it on my desire list and I had the intention to get a new mentor, like, but I often have small seeds. And then when the opportunities come, or like I've never really chased when I've never really chased then. It's like I didn't kind of like search for a mentor in luxurious, like, you just came up in my feed somehow. So, I mean, and why would I, because it's so much noise out there, why would I choose you? I believe it's, meant to be in that sense. And also, like, I didn't have any money, and you have even crazier stories, I think, about how you have joined different things or invested in yourself. So to live and take crazy risks, because yeah, we might not trust ourselves, or believe in ourselves because we're still in that old identity or that old version of us, but to jump into it and as you say, clean up the mess. I wouldn't have done anything otherwise, because I've tried to my whole life fix myself, and yeah, that didn't work. I've tried.
No, no. Yeah, it's just like making the move, knowing you're going to be okay no matter what. Like, yes, I've always had fear. Like, it, I can't even describe how much 99% of the moves I made did not make sense on paper. It didn't make sense to anybody, but it made sense to me. And I was so nervous and I was so scared because it was so unknown. Everything was so unknown. But I knew that if I just stayed in my current situation without making moves, I would have still been there. I think the reason that I got to where I am is because I don't get comfortable in what I don't want. I don't settle for the mediocre. I make these large, crazy leaps, and usually they come with investing in mentorship. And I just go all in and I just do it. And I've elevated my life because of it. And times have been so messy. And I learned how to navigate it. And now I don't fear. It's funny because I would always like fear, like, oh my God, what if I lose it all? Or what if I can't, quote unquote, afford this? And I've had like every bad thing that I would feared happen. And I was always okay. I always figured it out because I really believe that when we get to a point where our fear happens, there's this superpower that's activated within us that gets really resourceful and all of a sudden turns on and swoops in and we're fine. Whether that's we ask for help or it's that we start actually selling if we have a business or we find the job now or whatever it might be. And so I was always okay. And now I just don't fear. Like I was listening to a podcast that's so unrelated to our work. It's just like a reality kind of podcast, TV podcast. And he was just sharing something like when you make a lot of money and you own your own business, because he's like some type of influencer or something. He's like, you'll always fear. You're gonna start buying the things, and the bigger that you get in business, and the more successful that you become, and the more that you have, the more you're going to fear you're gonna lose it. And the more stressful it becomes. And I was like, I agree if you haven't done the work that that's true.
Hmm.
But I have gone through so many of those like emotional dips that I'm not afraid of losing it because I know that so many things will happen before I actually lose it. Like there will be flags, there will be things that are like, ooh, our mindset is off here. We're not doing this, we're not feeling this way. And it's up to me to just get back into alignment. So I no longer fear the worst case scenario because I've lived a lot of the hard things. I've gotten through it. Nobody could even tell I was going through the hard things, at least like unless you were like very close to my like close to me and I was sharing certain things that were like bothering me in my mind. Um, I never lost anything. Nothing ever broke, nothing ever fell. It was all just a mindset, which was crazy. But I forgot where I was going with this whole tangent. But all of that to say,
Yeah,
we
that
move.
we take big crazy risks and
Mhm.
moves, and we don't know where we're going to land, I guess. Quantum leaping, but I guess, I never had the money. So if we take me as an example, coming into your world, I mean, I bought flowers for my last money because I didn't hold the money before. I just spent them. So, I mean, I've had money. I started to like 2 months into business without even knowing how to run a business. I had my clients and
Mhm.
so many things have happened. So when I joined your role, I didn't have any money, and I did have not so much money even before buying the flowers because I bought makeup for it. But it sounds so unlogical, of course, because by by me buying the makeup and telling myself I can have this, that's why more money comes. And it sounds
Mhm.
so crazy. Or when I just, at the same time, I quit my job again without knowing more than like I would go back more fully into my business. And I remember I was seeing this guy and he was like, but what's your plan? I'm like, I'll just let the magic unfold. Like,
Yes.
it's like, okay. And like, people like, I'm a bit worried for you and to not get dragged into other people's fears because I had enough with my own. I mean, I, I have been such an overthinker. But I mean, and I was cocky even, when I was in your free thing and I was like, I'm joining this. I think it was the brand diaries. I'm joining this. I just spent my last dollars on tulips, but I'm joining. Just watch me.
Yes.
It feels orgasmic. And the next day I'm like, yes, the money's here. I'm in. And after that, I don't even know how much I've paid you. Like,
Oh, yeah. I mean, you just kept, I remember seeing that message from you where you were like, I literally just spent my last dollars on flowers and I'm joining your thing. And then you came into like you literally came into my program within the next day and then you upgraded and then you've just been in my world like so many in so many different capacities and it's so magic. But I remember that first message you sent because I get a lot of messages where women are like, I'm manifesting your course. I'm gonna join. And a lot of the times it's very like they're waiting around, right? I can tell it's not gonna happen. But when you had sent that, I was like, I have no fear for her. She's gonna work with me. Like zero fear. And I've never had like fear for you, which and not that I have like fear for my clients, but I can sense when I can just sense certain things. I've never had like fear for you because I'm always like, she just has it. Like you show up in spaces with leadership, which a lot of people don't. They'll come into spaces, which is why you're where you are and you're headed to so much more. You show up into spaces with this like self-led energy. You don't put it on anyone else. And being a mentor, being a coach, I'm sure you've experienced this too, where people will invest in something and then they'll just expect, like, oh, but like, kind of thought you were going to do it all for me.
hmm.
I invested in this. Like, now can't I just like sit back and you do everything? And it's like, no, you have to do the work. Like, you have to, it's your life. I'm just here as a guide. I'm here to help you move through stuff, but I can't do anything for you. But with you, it was in like you already knew that coming in and you just made magic from it, you know? You just, even when you went through hard things, you just moved through it with such grace and pleasure and fun. And you joked about it, you know, and you moved through it very like seamlessly. And it was really inspiring and really beautiful to watch and witness. Because I'm like, these are the women that are gonna rise. Like these are the women that I know without a doubt will be successful because there's no clashing of energies. There's no like little girl energy come rescue me. It's like I got this. I'm gonna take care of it. I'm gonna do it. I'm choosing to do this. It's such power. So just wanted to reflect that to you as well during that time. And still, of course, but during that time I was like, this girl is like something special. Like she's gonna move through this with such ease. And it's gonna be a story. I think I told you that. I'm like, I can't wait for you to like tell this story to the public of how you spent your last few dollars on flowers in my program. And then what you like manifested so much money and healed so much around money last year. And like then you started this podcast and you're interviewing incredible people. Like it's crazy to see how far you've come in a year. It really is.
Yeah, thank you for reflecting that back to me. And, I do believe we come into someone's world also when we are ready, in a sense, because I worked with different mentors before. And I mean, there's certainly a part of me that thinks like, oh my God, I don't got this.
Oh,
And
I've
then
been there
I,
too.
but I mean, you just held me, and I even wrote a post on Facebook today that I spent $1,500 per hour on coaching, and I spent 1 hour crying. Like, I remember our last private mentorship call, and
Mhm.
and I was just crying and crying, 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 crying. And I think I was just so ready to open up and be more fully vulnerable. And you're just so loving, Emily. So it's been, and I was just so ready for that. You are really nurturing and still so, holding the space, but without the saving, and
Mhm.
you reflect back as you're doing right now, I think it's so hard to look at ourselves from the outside sometimes. And and
Mhm.
yet I know, I mean, we ended up in Paris together. And even then, you and I want to go, I'll just figure it out. And we met in freaking Paris.
I remember the message too that you sent, and then you're like, oh my God, well, I have the screenshot of the message that you sent when you're just like, let's go to Paris, send me the link, like something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this woman who spent her last few dollars on flowers is now, we're literally going to Paris together. It's such
Yeah.
a dream. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy what happens when you follow your pleasure and your abundance. And, for many years, the things that I did didn't make sense. Like, but now in hindsight, when I look back, it's like, of course, that had to happen for me to be here today. And like, the moves really don't make sense until you can look back in hindsight and you're like, oh my gosh, if I never did that, I would have never done that and I would never have been here. So it's really beautiful instead of like being in the energy where I think a lot of people go, where they're like, I'm going to make this investment or I'm going to do this thing and it has to yield me this ROI or this thing. It's really beautiful to just be like, no, I was meant to do it because I was meant to do it. And there doesn't have to be an ROI for me to just know that it was meant for me. Like, how can you put an ROI on pleasure? You really can't, right? But I think we're so trained with like ROIs and business and investments and just that masculine world. I think what you and I do really well is when we make an investment, whether it's in makeup or it's on a trip to Paris or it's in mentorship, we're doing it because we know it's part of our journey and we're not putting pressure on how it's supposed to look. Just like that call that we did where you're crying. If you were putting pressure on yourself with like, I have to ask these very specific questions, that's not what you needed on that call. You needed to release on that call. So, and if I would have put pressure on my spaces, like, she has to ask me these questions or she's not going to get enough, I would be putting so much expectation and pressure on that call. You wouldn't have felt that safety to just release and just like be you. So I think that's the power of feminine energy and the power of feminine entrepreneurship is that we can like really hold space for all of it. And it doesn't have, most of it won't make sense anyways, but it doesn't have to make sense at all. You know, it might make sense in when you're looking back years and years from now and you're telling stories to your kids or your grandkids or whoever or your new lover, like, yeah, I did that. I was there. I have no fear for you. Um, it'll be a really incredible story and a really fulfilling life. I know when I'm an old lady, like hopefully if I ever get to that point, I know you feel the same too. I want to be in my like deathbed, like I lived a full and complete life. And I have so many stories from my single girl era and just building this business and this crazy lifestyle that I would never take away in a million years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, we live, and I mean, life is a playground. Yeah, hard shit is happening. Darkness is present in this world. And how can we be more of a light, like the beacon of light? How can we move through our own darkness and like be even more playful and more in pleasure? Because when we feel good, we do good. Like,
Yeah.
that's just the thing. So I would love for you to tap into, maybe you could do a transition. I don't know. You talk a lot about how money and men walk hand in hand, and that's my experience too. That is like that. But like your journey around men, because that has been a whole journey for me too. So I would just love to hear your personal transformational story there because now you're releasing a program, Date Like a Goddess, and like you also post a lot of things around. I mean, you went to a trip to New York and like stuff happens in your world. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but yeah, I would love for you to share your juicy, how much you want to share about your juicy
Goodness.
life with men.
Gosh, this could be like a 5 hour podcast alone, just talking about men. But um, I really waited to run a course specifically on dating and romance, and I've had little courses here and there, but I wanted to wait till I felt fully complete.
Mm.
And I have spent years dating, and I mean, I've gotten into like little relationships here and there, but I'm really focused on like me, the version of me, my radiance, my turn on as a woman in dating. And of course, building this like incredible lifestyle. So I feel like finally I'm at that place where I'm ready to teach and I'm excited for that course to come out. But I, gosh, I started dating, I would get into these relationships, like I was in long-term relationships, and it was either like that roommate vibe where, we just became like roommates, or it was like something that was really toxic. So I was in two long-term relationships. One was, we were like roommates. There was really no romance. I didn't feel sexy. I didn't know who I was. And then I got into a long-term relationship right after that that was very emotionally abusive, very toxic. And when I got out of that relationship, I had bought myself this diamond ring that I still wear every day. And I bought it when I was traveling alone as just like a sign to never to always choose myself, to never get stuck into a relationship where I'm undermined and abused like that again. Emotional abuse is just something that you can't even describe it unless you've been through it. It's hard. And so it took a lot of years, like years of healing from that relationship. But when I was first single after that relationship, I could just, gosh, I would accept breadcrumbs because to me, breadcrumbs were so much more than I was getting from that past relationship. And so, like, I remember thinking if he texted me good morning in the morning, like a good morning text, I was like, oh my God, this is the sweetest thing ever. Like, I would literally accept breadcrumbs. I would wait around at my phone waiting for him to text. I'd have horrible anxiety if the guy I was seeing didn't text me right away. I wanted to like constantly be in contact. I had a lot of anxious attachment.
Mm.
And so I started to just heal a lot of this and started to upgrade the way that I saw dating. And my mom, one of the things that my mom had told me when I started dating after this toxic relationship was, I want you to remember when you go on these dates that you're the prize. Because I was really nervous to date again. And so I kept that in the back of my mind. Like, if I am the prize, what would I want? And I think what a lot of women do in dating is we put these men on pedestals
Mm.
because we feel like we're under a time crunch to get married, or we put pressure on ourselves there. We feel like we're not good enough or we're unworthy. So we're putting these men on a pedestal and trying to please them. When in reality, we should be the ones being pleased by men. We are the receivers. Men are the ones in their masculine. We get to be in our feminine. So when I believe that I'm the prize, I started to shift the way that men treat me because I shifted the way that I treated myself. And gosh, I went from like thinking good morning texts and like Netflix and chill dates were like cute and like special to men taking me to on trips and taking me on, really nice dates and cooking for me and holding the door open, like all of the masculine courting things that I've always dreamt of that I didn't feel possible for me. I watch men do that all the time for me now. And it feels a lot in dating. Like I get this question a lot, which it is so infuriating if you're a single woman. But I get this question a lot with people of like, why are you still single? Like, why are you single? I just don't get it. And it's like, I could be in a relationship. There's men that great men I've dated and I've gone on dates with that just didn't feel like the match yet, but where I want to like settle with somebody. But what I have witnessed is how men show up in my world and how men show up for me and how they really romance me. And um it's not like I nag them to or I don't put an expectation. It's just what they naturally seem to do because that's my natural energy and my natural state. But, you know, I think the last piece, there's so many things in dating, but I think the last piece to that's important to share is a big fear that I had, and that I'm sure you can relate to, is that when we are a woman who has success, who shares very openly online of our journey. And share very openly about my travels, my dating stories, the money I've made. A lot what I started to notice was men would be like so in awe of me on date number one and date number two. Like, I want to see you again. And then they would find my Instagram. And I would get messages from these men that are like, I found your Instagram. I don't want to go on that date with you. And I
Oh.
had this happen like in different way. I had that exact thing specifically happen. I've had it happen where men are just like, you're too intimidating for me. And I knew it was because they found my Instagram because they said it right after they looked at my stories. And so I started to get this like narrative and this belief that like I have to turn down my success and turn down my turn on because men can't handle me.
Yeah.
Men are so turned off by successful women. Men are too intimidated. And I finally just like had to shift that belief because I was not willing to go down the path of this like helpless, you know, I don't know, like damsel in distress in order to get a man. I don't want a man to see me in weakness because then I'll never be able to be powerful. Like, I don't want a man that can't handle me in my power. So I remember specifically having this affirmation that was men are so turned on by my success. And although I don't give men my last name right away or my Instagram right away because I just feel like I want people to get to know me first before making an assumption about me on social media. When I did receive that text from the man saying, I don't want to see you again because because I found your Instagram. And I just responded back, okay, that's it. Just okay. And then he came back like a week later apologizing and asking to for me to go on this and give him another chance and that he was just intimidated. And it was really empowering to say, thank you. I received that. Like I appreciate you apologizing, but no thank you to the second date because or third date or whatever, because he's already showed me and I didn't have to explain it to him. He didn't need that. But
Wow.
he's already showed me who he was, right? If you're making that judgment about me, what else are you going to judge about me? It's his own insecurity. And that's what happens when you're an empowered, healed, successful woman. You're going to attract a lot of men, or a lot of men's strongness is going to come out, which is beautiful. But sometimes you're going to attract men and their insecurities are going to come out really strongly because they don't know how else to react. And unfortunately, that's just something we have to kind of deal with, but it's easy to weed through. So I think it's just like the biggest thing I've learned in dating is to not dim yourself down to fit into a man's life. Like, radiate so high and turn on so much that that man rises to you. And if he doesn't, there are so many penises out there. There are literally so many penises in the sea, right?
Yeah.
There's so many. And so it's just like, and it's not to be like, it's not to say like I don't connect to people, but I I'm not going to take men's bullshit, you know? I'm not going to take their red flags and I'm not afraid now. I used to be afraid to speak to things. Like if I was on a date and I wasn't feeling the vibe, I would stay on the date and I
Mhm.
would continue to text him and I would waste my own time knowing I didn't want to be with that person. Now if I go on a date with somebody and I'm halfway through a drink and I'm like, listen, I appreciate your time, but like this is not a match. I will say that to somebody because I don't want to waste his time. I don't want to waste my time. If a man over is kind of overstepping my boundaries a little bit, he doesn't necessarily know my boundaries yet. So I'll say something like, hey, this, like, I don't like this. And it's totally fine if you want to keep doing that. But to be with me, this, I'm not going to accept this. And I'll say it lovingly and kindly at first. But and I'll watch them either rise and honor that. And most of the time they will. And if they don't, I immediately cut it off. So it's really like I've learned how to hold standards,
Mm.
raise and elevate my standards, and speak up about my boundaries, like speak to my boundaries. And be that like force of nature. Like that's what the feminine is, you
Mm.
know? It's so powerful when we can be ourselves in dating and we don't have to dim ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm just loving how you are bringing all these pieces up because I think it's so important. And yeah, of course, I recognize myself. This has happened to me too. You know
Yes.
it. And yeah, but I mean, of course, it's not about the man if we take the piece of being, threatening or, even if it's being wild in our emotions or in our success as women or whatever. But but of course it can hit a core wound for us. So I mean, it's not about the man per se, but and of course the more we move through it, the more we heal and we lose attachments to the bullshit stuff. So I mean, one man texted me yesterday and all that I would have answered just to be nice. But I
Hmm.
could see that I was the last person answering him. And it was over a month ago when we texted last, and he didn't even invite me for a date. So I'm like, if a man can't even take me on a date, I'm not texting him. Like, take
Right.
me on a
It
date,
doesn't deserve
connect
the
with me for
energy.
real. Or so I didn't even respond. And old me would have thought, oh my God, so bitchy. But it's like, yeah, it's
Yes.
not because I think he's a horrible person. I talked to him on the phone. He was a great guy, but obviously he don't know how to take me on a date. So what can a girl do? And yeah, of course, I don't mean also that I can't hold people's insecurities because I still have insecurities sometimes myself. But if we are like on date one, date two, we're not in a relationship. I can't bring my full self to the table in that sense. Like, and I think in sometimes it feels like people want to jump into something too. But the funny thing that when I got rejected, when someone found my Facebook page, was that, you didn't really even ask me any questions about my business or what I was doing, or, because I have the same thought, because I've shifted and changed so much in the past on my social media because I have this piece of me that really wants to connect and find my soulmate and a co-creative relationship. But I stopped with that. So it's so interesting that I was rejected by that man because yeah, did you even were you even interested in like my passions about what I even do? And I also didn't want to give out my social media in the beginning now recently because as you say, we want someone to get to know us for us.
Hmm.
And if someone would have asked me the questions, I would have explained it in the beginning. He would have known even before finding my social media, what do you even do? And now I don't even know what he got triggered by. Maybe I wrote something when I was triggered
Who
myself.
knows? Yeah.
Yeah, no one knows. But I think me as a woman or as a girl have bent over backwards to try to work things out with men or people that was, so much meant to be just released so quickly. And of course, comes from our own wounding. So when we work through those attachment wounds and abandonment wounds, so I could have not texted a man before, like this example I'm having, but I would still have felt it in my body. I would have used up energy overthinking, am I a bad girl now? Am I doing bad now? And now it's just, it's not even a thing. It's just
Yeah.
next, moving forward. It doesn't take up my energy.
Mhm.
So it's just such a powerful thing to move through these things. And I think, that's the energetics of it, to really be in the frequency or the feminine energy of it. Because as I say, I could have, sat on my hands and not texted a man back or whatever, but I want to I want to release it in the core of who I am.
Mhm.
As you told earlier around the success part, oh, the more money you have, the more you will fear losing it. It's the same with men. If we are performing, then of course you will be so afraid to lose a man when you meet him, and maybe you choose the first best man you meet because you just want to be in a relationship, and you will always fear someone leaving. If you live in a relationship where you fear someone leaving all the time, is yeah, what comes up, it would be like living in a freaking war zone, like always on the lookout. So exhausting.
It would be so exhausting. And like that's kind of just like to tie into the question earlier of like how are men and money, working together? It's like it's just that. That's how they work together. Because if you're constantly feeling you're not good enough for the men and you're always people pleasing and you're always dimming yourself and you're always chasing, you're doing the same thing with money. The core wounds that you have with money, you have with men. And it's beautiful because when we do this work, whether we choose, I mean, it just depends on where you are in life. Like sometimes I'll choose to really focus on healing my heart, and other times I'll really be focused on healing money stuff. So whatever I'm healing, it like I'll notice it helps on the other side, right? So it's like when I'm elevating my standards around money, and I start making more and I start feeling better about money and I start raising my prices and I do all of this stuff, I notice like, oh, I don't tolerate that bad behavior from men anymore. Oh, I don't wait around by my phone anymore because I am too full in life. Oh, I don't take empty promises anymore. I don't do those. I automatically will shift. And then the same thing with men. When I'm healing my heart, I notice that a lot of the things apply to money too. And so it's just beautiful. Like when you just go into the pleasure work and into the intimacy work, it heals all aspects together. It's really cool to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, in essence, it's what you're saying, because everything is a relationship to something else. And for me, the same. I mean, this year, or God, it's 2025. Last year, being able to take myself to Paris, and I have had also been thinking about, putting a ring on my finger. So that's what I
Yes.
did in the Eiffel Tower. Um, but where it was the same, like I'm choosing myself, and I will never, ever, ever abandon myself. Yes, I might sometimes fall and in small moments slip, but I come back home to myself again. And it was, the same. And what I've noticed is that last year when I started to more consistently earn money, was that I was able to romance myself. I was able to support myself, um, healing kind of the damsel in distress, because I believe some women are super in their hyper independence all from the beginning and like,
Yeah.
I don't need no man. And I was like the baby, like, take care of me.
Like, take care of me, pay my bills, please.
Yeah, my 17-year-old
I
year
tend
old.
to be more of that on that side too. The damsel. I mean, it's fun to play that role, just not when it comes to the detriment of your own success, but it is fun to play that role.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's so funny. My daughter looked at me today and made fun of me. Oh, you're so cute and petite. I'm like, you're cute and petite.
Baby.
But anyways, what I've noticed was when I was able to do those things for myself, my anxious attachment, or I was both anxious and avoidant, but my insecure attachment, let's call it that, with men, it 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 transforms so much. So I could have the space creating my own inner security, my security around money and what I could do for myself because I wanted to. Yes, I might have been insecure or like feeling unworthy of receiving it from men, but when I gave it to myself and allowed myself to have it, it was like, as you say, you become so full. And I do believe the money came after my inner work, you know? But when it's actually manifested more consistently in my physical reality, it was like, no, as you say, I don't take bullshit from men in that sense. Like, I don't need to because I don't need saving anymore. So,
Right.
with that said, that doesn't mean that like like as I say, but why would I have responsibility over a total stranger that comes 1 month after I was open for an invitation? Because I think we have to also be self-aware sometimes if men act in a certain way. Am I maybe have my walls up? Do I trigger them from, that space? Because that have happened too. But yeah, yeah. So I agree. Men and money walk hand in hand.
Yes, yeah, they do. And you get to have both. I think we're so taught the narrative in life that you're either, and this is just so played out with even movies we watch, right? You're either like the hard, cold bitch, but you have a lot of money, or you're like the sweet, broke, deeply in love girl that's so romanced. And there's no in between. So we're almost like brought up to believe that you can't have it all. You can't have both. It's impossible, but it's so possible. And like just a narrative, I've been doing, my jaw is so, if you keep seeing me like frown, it's because my jaw is so tight. I'm like, oh my God, I need to give my jaw a break. When I'm doing spiritual work, I tend to like hold so much tension here. And I'm like trying to release it. But I was doing work last night where, oh gosh, what was the affirmation that there was like a little belief that I had that if I fell in love, like madly in love with the right man, that my business would crumble and it's like these crazy beliefs. You're like, I believe that. My business would crumble because I wouldn't be paying attention to it as much because I would be so in love. I just wouldn't have any more cares. And so I reprogrammed that belief to be like, no, when I'm in love, I've seen myself in love. I'm in love right now with just the world and my life and who I am and my friends. So when I'm in love and there's just more love, I only make more money because money is love, because I am love. So when I feel love and supported and nourished and peaceful, more money can land because I can hold more. I have more space to hold. So more love just means more abundance. Um, it's funny sometimes that we have a money cord attached to like lack, even though we don't necessarily see it. It can just be like, or we'll have a money cord attached to pressure. And so a lot of people are like, the more I'm under pressure, the more I'm in scarcity, the more I make because I'm like, oh, I have that sense of urgency. I've had that before where I was like, I was making a lot of money, I had a lot of money, but my cord was attached to pressure. So that's why I say now it's like pleasure over pressure. And I've attached it to pleasure. So it's like there's not an urgency to make it. Instead, it's just like it just feels like receiving more and more just because I get to have it. There's not this like pressure, urgency, scarcity in receiving. So anyway, just to kind of like tie it to personal stuff that I'm even like still working on roots of my dog. Been barking.
Emily is barking.
Yeah, always.
What? I think he's a very quiet dog. I've been into many of your calls.
Yeah, he's usually really quiet, but I locked him out of the room today, so he's like, why am I not allowed in there? And he's barking now.
So I would also love to tap into Emily because I know also you have things coming up around this, but um, can we talk about seduction? Because when we talk about, these pieces of, oh, I have to play down to not be so powerful, successful, rich, or, sexy or sexual or whatever expression we want to dim to be more, to be more, accommodating or whatever. Not that the men have chosen it either. I really want to put this in here because we're sitting in the fucking same boat in many ways because we didn't choose it from the beginning, none of us. But yeah, and I believe nervous system regulation is so important here for any gender, honestly, and doing the work in whatever way um feels good to anyone. But anyways, because I feel like or flirting, you're good at flirting, seduction. I want to really bring out your magic, Emily, and give it the juice.
Oh, well, I feel like with like flirting and seduction, it's just such a natural expression when you're in your sacral feminine magic. It's just how you interact and see the world. So it's funny because I had one of my girlfriends text me the other day and she's like, I just like am not a flirty person. Like I don't know how to flirt. And it's like, it's because we were taught flirting is like something that it's not really, and seduction is something it's not really. It's just when you're connected to your feminine, it's just this playful conversation. I like to say flirting, and I believe that I probably extracted this from a book called Pussy that I've read like 500 times now.
Yeah, same with
Yes, it's just one of my favorite books. And Mama Gina, the author, I believe she was the one who said, flirting is just having a conversation when you're connected to pleasure energy. So
Mm.
it's not that like we often see flirting as this like forbidden thing, or we're trying to like manipulate, or we're trying to steal somebody's man. But, I watch like my 6-year-old niece flirt with me.
Exactly.
I see her like, I really could use this makeup kit, and like me like buying it for her because I'm just like, oh my gosh, like of course I'm gonna buy you this because she's just having a good time on this planet and like soaking up life, and like she just talks, animals flirt with us. My dog flirts with like every man and woman he sees when we walk by, and he's just like, pet me. So flirting is just like making connection when you feel good with people. It could
Mm.
just be something, and I'll give just like a little, tips. I'm taking a Pilates class, so I have to hop off very soon. But
I
a
know.
couple
Time.
gotta stay. Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize my Pilates class starts soon. But something as simple as when you're walking down the street, instead of like having your eyes on your phone like this and just like talking to nobody, what if you like rolled your shoulders back and you just flaunted what you were wearing and you felt really good and you smiled at the stranger you walked by or said, "Good morning, have a nice day" to somebody? Like, how often do we actually do that? What if you sparked up conversation in the elevator
Yeah.
instead of just staring at your phone with your arms crossed? What if you made eye contact with the cute man at the bar? And if he approaches you, like you can handle it. That's a big thing. Like this seductive piece, I teach like this thing with, and I taught this in one of my courses, the magnetic year, where we were talking about seduction, the art of seduction. And I told the women, just next time you go out, I shared this like little playful tool with seduction is like feel really sexy, dress sexy, and then go somewhere by yourself. And I want you to just like make eye contact with a guy that you think is hot. And just make eye contact long enough that he knows that you've looked at him, not in a creepy way, but just like you hold the eye contact for maybe 2 seconds and then look away and look away once more, just a quick glance, and then just do your own thing. And I guarantee that that man's going to come over. I guarantee he's going to start conversation with you because you're giving him an opening, right? You're
Yeah.
playing, teasing. I hear from a lot of men that I've dated that usually women are really forward. So usually, Finny, so usually it'll be like women, like just really putting themselves out there and like, which is not a bad thing, but it's not seduction. So they'll be like, give me your number, or
The whore
are
energy,
you
right? Like,
single? Or like, so, yeah, it's very forward. Men love this like really playful, like almost hard to get, but I'm still giving you an opening. I'm not closing myself off and saying don't approach because men are also very cautious now with like just the way the world is to
yeah.
approach women. So we often say like, oh, men are too afraid and there's no masculine men. It's like because you look like this when no man is going to approach you when you're on your phone or you're in a group of 20 women out at a bar. Like no man,
You know who will approach you? The
the
only one
creepy
left
men.
are the predators. So
Yes.
it's actually very unsafe when you're not in your true seductive energy. So
Yeah,
that's the
so
paradox of
true.
it.
Yeah, so true. So, in when we're in our seduction or in our flirtation, we're connected to our feminine energy. We feel safe in it. I can turn it off at any moment. The moment somebody makes me feel uncomfortable, I can shut it down. Um, or when I don't want to, when I'm not out to flirt, I don't want to have conversation with anybody, I can turn it off, right? I can put that like do not approach sign on my forehead.
On your
So
energy.
you're in full control. Yeah, you're in full control, but don't be afraid. I think a lot of women are just afraid. We're afraid for like, what am I going to say if he approaches me? You're going to be a normal human and say hi. There's
Yeah. Yeah.
have to do. There's no perfect thing you have to say. You're just yourself, but you're feeling yourself when you're yourself.
Yeah, I love that feeling yourself. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I love that you take the elevator because I was invited for dinner when I stayed at a five-star hotel where I took myself instead of going to a man that had invited me. I took myself on a trip and ended the most beautiful night kissing by the moonlight at my five-star
Yes.
hotel room. And it was so funny too because I didn't know who slipped the note under my door because I talked to like everybody. I'm like, hi. So yeah, and I got invited for dinner. Someone slipped
Yes.
a note under my door. I came home and I had a note under my door, like,
That is so magical. And that's like the thing. It's like if you felt like I don't want to go out, you could have just not responded, right? Like we are in control and we're in power. And I understand the safety aspect. I do. I understand women fearing the safety aspect. But there's ways we can protect ourselves. And I want women to know that like you can be flirty and seductive and also be safe and also take care of yourself and also say no when you don't want it. So you're in your power when you're in those expressions.
I agree. Okay, Emily, I'm going to let you go to Pilates, okay?
Oh, I'm like, thank you, but also not thank you because I really don't want to go, but my body will thank me later.
Yeah. I could hold you here for hours, but that's just how girl talk is, I guess.
Yes.
Also. Yes. Oh my God. Thank you so much for this elevated girl talk. And it's interesting where it just flowed.
Mhm.
And
So good.
I'll be seeing you and yeah, soon again.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Yeah, for others who want to find you, how can they find you?
Um, Instagram, I'm at Emily Diaries XO. It's
Yeah.
probably the best way to find me. And I think Facebook, just regular, is Emily Whiteside. So either of those.
Yeah, and I'll put the handles in here. So, okay, so
Well,
I'll
thank you
see
so
you.
much. Oh, sending you so much love. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, bye.